Moses, Ezra, and Vesper were in the service of Diaz, although it wasn't a matter of choice in this case. It was a matter of necessity. We pick this up at chapter 31, The Laundry of Dreams. The laundromat was easy enough to enter. It was large and aged, which had 26 front-loading washing machines. The fluorescent lamps had seen better days, like the rest of the building, like the floor tiles. It had an old pop song playing from the ceiling. It's truly terrible, isn't it? Vesper assumes that this distortion isn't a threat to them, as she walks into it willingly. Moses mentioned that some grade 3 fixers and their colleagues were victims of this. It wiped their office out, along with others going missing, at least according to Ezra. Moses went on to say that they were found as different people altogether. Vesper wanted to know what she meant by that. Moses told him that they looked the same, but inside they no longer existed as who they were before. Ezra pointed out the washing machine that was running. It was rattling. There was laundry inside. Nothing out of the ordinary so far, although she didn't want to stop the machine. As far as Moses was concerned, it was too soon to act. Vesper then pointed out a storage and utility room, which suggested to Moses that it wasn't self-service, potentially making it different to what she was expecting it to be, where the owner manually cleaned the clothes customers entrusted to them. But there was no cash register or a staff station. Moses told Vesper to open the door, and Ezra to look around a little more. They did so. While this was going on, she could smell the scent of fabric softener in the air. But in the storage room, it was compared to a butcher's shop. Yeah, the kind in that district. Human skin was suspended on hangers. Ooh, sounds worse than today's shiny look. That abnormality where it involves skin masks. This helped her to figure out what this was. The skin of the human is peeled off, and the insides are washed clean, which reflects the city. A provocative procedure, skinning humans alive. That's considered normal? Okay, has Moses been watching Dread? As for the purpose, does washing signify purification or change? Moses considered the latter to be more likely, as there was a desire to become someone else and stand out among the city folk. Unfortunately, not all change is good, and might not achieve the effect that they believed it to be. Regardless, this desire is stronger than the desire to get clean in a conventional way. They took their skin off and left it there. Oh, so it doesn't change race and gender. It just changes what's within. As for when that happened, did it happen after inserting the coin? Does the laundry need to be inside the machine? Then again, there was nothing deceiving her senses so far, as her distortion sight would have noticed the illusion if it was there. She and Vesper left the storage room. Then Ezra, once they left that room, was caught trying to get them the front-loading washing machines to work using ordinary coins. Moses was annoyed by Ezra messing with the washing machine, as doing that without her being around is dangerous. Ezra understood this. Moses understood that those that can't see the distortion might have problems, such as walking into a gaping mouth and then getting eaten, or pulled away by shadowy hands, not knowing that their demise is getting near. She can see past the illusion. Ezra asked if it mattered if she got the coin from the exchange machine. Moses was annoyed by how impulsive Ezra can be sometimes, but she recognized that someone had to test it out, even though her curiosity was a challenge to deal with. Moses told her to give her the coin that came out of the exchange machine, but despite Ezra agreeing to do so, the coin slipped from her hand, and before Moses could tell her to grab the coin landed on Ezra's hand and made a hole in it. It then rolled around the floor and fell down the drain. Yeah, that's likely where the slot for that coin is. As for what happens next, Vesper then alerted Moses to the vanished storage room door and heard a loud mechanical noise in the distance. Yes, the coin was dispensed for a reason, and the space was clearly distorting. The room was twisting and turning. Ezra's body was feeling icky and stuffy by her own admission, and she asked Moses if she felt the same way. They then saw Ezra's body slowly being filled with filth that resembled viscous blood. Moses needed to act quickly, as this was either something that only she could see, or everyone could see. It was likely to be the former in this case. Ezra believed herself to be a coward during the smoke war, feeling that she wouldn't be forgiven. Moses remembered that memories of that day would be brought up when a distortion triggered her traumas. PTSD was clearly demonstrated here, and both Moses and Ezra were familiar with it. But Ezra, she was less able to deal with it, which can be problematic at times. Ezra wanted away with her dirty body, and her skin unzipped and was stripped off her, which revealed what Moses did not want to see. A form that she didn't dare to look at. A form full of desires. Moses told Vesper to keep his eyes closed, as Moses exhaled a white breath from her pipe, which filled the room with mist to protect Vesper's mind from being affected, along with Moses. Then she let out a violet breath and used her whip constructs around that silhouette. Moses told Vesper to stand still. He understood. And Moses saw how this worked. The human took off their skin, put it in the washing machine, and then headed over to the storage room and wore another person's husk, wearing the clean and new Clothing. If Ezra was allowed to do that, she'll no longer exist as herself anymore. Moses had to stop her. Contradiction was needed to solve this. Deeds considered natural and mandatory were denied and reversed. Where that person wore that contaminated shell before it could be washed. In theory, this could weaken the distortion, but the problem was how to make her put it back on. It needed to be put back on voluntarily, knowing that it's filthy, or to deny. Yes, to deny that place. It couldn't be forced. Vesper asked if he should slash the Laundry of Dreams. Moses advised against that, as it could backfire. They should only get destructive as a last resort. He prepared for that in case that was needed. He wasn't affected by the distortion, even though Vesper clearly had some trauma, although it would be hard to piece together as she'd need time to get to know him better. Ezra took priority at this point. Moses asked if she sees her current self as filthy. Ezra saw herself as having too much blood on her hands. She was filled with self-hatred, which would explain the mask distortion on her. Moses tells her that she likes her for who she is, which surprised Ezra by how honest and direct she was. Moses meant what she said, knowing that Ezra was aware of the attention that she got, especially from Moses. She considered Ezra her responsibility. She wears the filthy husk. After hearing that, and this has an effect on the laundromat. It stopped whirling and bending, and it was restored to how it was. Then it started to shrink. Moses ordered Vesper to pick up Ezra and get the out of there. They got out quickly and safely, and the Laundry of Dreams was now the size of a small toy house. Vesper, upon seeing this, asked if the case had been solved, while he was carrying Ezra on his shoulders. Moses confirmed that it was. Vesper asked if that was normal for them, although it was not so dramatic and he felt redundant.
Moses told him that it was because she knew who she was dealing with. It's why she and Ezra worked together. Although she admitted that what they had encountered was tame and simple compared to other recent cases. She thanked him for staying still. Yeah, clearly the Luigi-type solution was the best for that situation. Yeah, as in winning by doing absolutely nothing. That, and she'd be unlikely to be able to help him if he was in Ezra's situation. As for the distortion, it's ultimately a human affair. Things were often covered up and details glossed over. Bad things usually denied. Well, all but that last part were like human relationships. Well, as far as Vesper was concerned anyway. Moses admitted to herself that he wasn't wrong. It's like solving relationship issues with people. She couldn't just ignore and turn away from them. So the disease of the mind is something that Moses at least has a resistance to, if not outright immunity. Well, if she did, what she encountered would remain unsolved. This is usually the case when someone doesn't bother to understand the cause or process of the distortion. Never mind make the subject understand it. If she sees it as not her problem. Thankfully, she does see it as her problem. And not just for any money that each case brings. Of course, in this case, it's not about the money. It's about something that isn't tied to material wealth.
Vesper asked if it was possible to revert the laundromat into a human. If their objective was to solve that distortion rather than capture them. Moses believed that it was possible, but the steps would be more complicated, asking if he was curious. Well, Moses understood the problem was like that with any relationship. It's harder to solve if the direct approach is taken. Vesper then basically said that if he needs to know, she can tell him when it's needed. Moses then picked up the smaller Laundry of Dreams and stored it in the trunk. No need to call for Ujat's backup with this one, as the trunk could easily contain it. Vesper asked if they both participated in the smoke war. Okay, this was a sensitive subject to Moses. She didn't want to talk about that. Vesper knew better than to press her for info on that. They got back into the vehicle and Moses opened communications to talk to someone that she'd rather not, but needed to at that point. She informed hee-joon that the Laundry of Dreams was taken care of. The human Thunderbolt was next. He was satisfied that the case was solved with minimal risk. Moses then decided to end the call, as she'd said what she needed to. Then hee-joon asked if they've meddled with the Kurokumo clan. Moses confirmed that to be the case, although she left out the detail of Vesper asking on his own with that one. And Moses cursed to herself how he was able to find that out. He was certainly a good fit for Seven Association. He told them that the Kurokumo clan was a thumb subsidiary, suggesting avoiding conflict with that finger, if they wish to complete their mission in... And already tired of him chewing her out and treating her like a naughty child, she cut him off. Seeing the thumb as decent compared to the index, as those prescript-following zealots might as well be walls as far as being talked to. Moses noted how Vesper was concerned about the thumb. She asked if he was scared that they might have to face a finger. He told her that if they have to confront the thumb, he'd be willing to lend his strength. Yeah, clearly it's personal with him. Which might explain why he killed that group of Kurokomo clan earlier. Moses made it clear that it was up to her. Vesper understood as the van continued to its next destination. We pick this up a little later. In Chapter 32, The Human Thunderbolts, the scenery had marginal difference between day and night, but the sun was setting in the evening, and they were approaching their destination. They ran into some objects, likely corpses. According to the case report, yes, the case report that hee-joon provided. The human Thunderbolt was an urban plague that made bolts of lightning occur when nearby, leaving charred bodies with a burning smell wherever it goes. Electricity is related to hysteria or neurosis. Sparks fly off. Electricity is conducted. Sharp and tingling wounds were inflicted on those that stood near it, fast and painful. So either black lightning or live wire. Mixed with a bit of the flash. If none of them had any control of their powers. Vesper then warned Moses that someone was after them. Dark figures were running alongside the van through the window, and he wasn't driving slowly. Ezra warns that one of them had pulled a knife. Although the van can take a lot of punishment, they don't know what this group is capable of. Moses asked if he could give them the slip without damaging the van. Vesper admitted that it wouldn't be easy, so Moses told him to stop it. Moses didn't think that this group was any match for Ezra and Vesper, although they're hesitant to get violent after slaughtering the Kurokomo clan. They got out of the van in the middle of District 12. They needed to prepare for battle, and Moses picked up a burning stench in her nose, which was the acidic smell of tobacco. Vesper readied his huando, and Ezra slipped on her Alas Workshop gauntlets, and the figures in the mist revealed themselves to be the smiling faces. Me. Those drug-crazed cannibals wearing masks from the Haho village. Yeah. Posing as folk dancers. The masks were made of steel, grinning from ear to ear. The narcotics were mixed in with the tobacco that enhanced their performances as they smoked them from their pipes. They were an urban nightmare class syndicate, and all while an urban plague case was about to be solved. It turned out that they didn't originate in District 23. They originated in the east of the city, but they eventually spread beyond that, at least to the south of the city. It's possible that they have a presence in the north if Moses is aware of that. Either that or it was in the intel she was given. Moses asked them if they were there to eat them. They weren't particularly talkative. This was out of place. Ezra questioned why they were silent. Moses was wondering this herself. They're usually quite talkative. There were 7 of them, and they were smoking as well as her. They also moved differently, at least according to Moses' observation. They're usually more theatrical, but they twitch like wooden puppets with faint sparks of electricity flowing through them. Vesper warned that they were running towards them. So the battle began. They wielded their pipes as blunt force weapons, with a hidden blade sheathed in the bowl of the pipe. A crude sword stick. Ezra faced two of them. One swung at her. She struck the bowl of the pipe. It made a small dent, briefly staggering that one. Then Ezra was hurt from the impacts of the pipe. From hitting it. Then she punched with her other fist and hit that smiling face in the chest, sending him flying into the wall. The other one swung at Ezra's arm. Moses looked out for her by slowing the blade down with her purple breath. This allowed Ezra to hit her attacker with her Nesta hammer on the forehead, which crumpled the hammer, but it didn't really work out as the mask was intact. And considering what it did to Vesper, it clearly hit hard, and Vesper was just that tough. Yeah. Speaking of which, he was taking care of 5 of them, using his harpoon to hit the left shoulder of a smiling face that was in front of Ezra, which made them drop their weapon. Ezra took out her Stigma Workshop blade and stabbed it in her opponent, which not only pierced them, it also burned them from within. They responded by hitting her lower jaw with their knee. And while this was going on, Moses figured out what was going on. They were being controlled by the human Thunderbolts, based on the purple electric discharges flowing through their bodies. Ezra and Vesper could still take them on, but it wouldn't be an easy battle for them. Moses didn't think that the violet whip would do on them, so she made the purple breath into thick chains. She told Ezra to throw the harpoon at her. She did so, but that exposed her to the attack of one of the smiling faces, who delivered a staggering smack on the cheek, as she was briefly distracted. She was able to stay upright and then threw the harpoon at Moses, who then tied it to the violet chain around the tip of the harpoon. Then she called Vesper, who understood to recall it, which flung it into one of the smiling faces. This resulted in the chains coiling around them, restraining their movements. The harder they struggled, the tighter the chains became, although it did cause a strain with her concentration. So does that make her that world's version of Green Lantern? Well, that pipe certainly works in a similar way, as it's dependent on her maintaining the constructs. And her willpower is, well, whatever is fueling it is not limitless. Her reserves are finite, although thankfully they haven't run out yet. Well, the binding was causing her pain regardless. She was struggling to maintain those chain constructs. Ezra used this time to deliver a low kick to one of the targets, breaking one of their legs, resulting in them being on their knees. Then Ezra manifested her psychomant on her other leg and delivered a kick straight to the head, which smashed the cranium along with the mask. Vesper retrieved his harpoon quickly and threw it at another smiling face, which slowed that one down long enough for him to finish them off. They were systematically defeated, and Vesper took the head off the last one. Ezra was relieved that they somehow got out of that alive. As for Moses, her head was pounding. Vesper recognized that they weren't like the ones that he's familiar with. Oh, so they have a presence in District 14. Either that or they have some info on them on the intel they got from hee-joon. Well, there's not enough to confirm either case. As for the smiling faces, Moses she understood that something was manipulating them. All that was left behind of the smiling faces, or specifically one of the heads of them. Yeah, that's Vesper's handiwork. Was a grinning face on a burned head. Then a crack of thunder occurred, where a stroke of light zipped past them, which burned the fog in its path, clearing mist within a radius of 10 meters. 500 corpses were revealed. Ezra was surprised by what the bodies were doing. They were being reanimated by the human Thunderbolts. They all rushed at them, including the smiling faces that they'd slain. Moses understood that this wasn't an urban plague. So it's at least an urban nightmare, if not a starved city. The human Thunderbolt took the form of a purple humanoid, purple being an uppity colour. Well, considering that in Korea it's associated with luxury and high quality. Okay, going off topic. Moses asked if it was moving to Vesper. And according to Vesper, he saw it as moving. In fact, it couldn't stay in one place, all to keep the corpses animated. Even though Moses' head was pounding, she told them that the plan would be the same. She'd stop it in its tracks and he cuts it down. Vesper asked how long she'd need until then. Moses replied 10 minutes. And Moses asked back how much time would it take for him to do his parts. He replied, a second. Vesper can hold off the smiling faces. Ezra can handle the regular unaugmented citizens. Although she was told not to get killed in the process. Ezra understood, telling Moses that she can count on her. The story continues with Chapter 33, Neurosis. Neurosis was defined by Moses as a spear of stress, a harmful prison, one that constricted the one that had it. It became worse when that person hurt others. The stimuli and irritation gave it electricity in physical form, one that burned with uncontrollable wrath. Although not explosive, it's the cutting kind of sharp, with the light prodding. It can also pierce with thrusts that create cavities in the mind. It flows through nearby conductors, changing the atmosphere of one's surroundings. The hysteria is poured onto others, which falsely makes one believe that it would make them feel that it would all be better in the end. But in the end, it would cause one's mind to smoulder and invoke impatience, while burning others more as a consequence. It's an endless stream of irritation and anger, along with megalomania and a victim mentality, one that spreads beyond the source quickly. 500 corpses were coming for them, reanimated by the human Thunderbolts, which moved too fast to make it easy to keep up with it. What it reanimates feels no pain, no fear. They were the minions of this distortion. It needed to be captured when it's jumping between bodies. The pale breath. Moses considered a last resort. Okay, do you really want to Ezra off again? So, no using the smoke of death and cessation. And I'm not talking about tobacco. So, the violet breath it is, even though it strangles the mind and drags her mind to the bottom with the guilt she felt from the memory that it's associated with. What was this memory, you may ask? Well, let's learn a little about the background of the woman we know as Moses. During the Smoke War, she was once a captain of the Ujats, the personal army of Lady Diaz, posing as a fixer office. Either the head doesn't see Lady Diaz as a threat to them, or she's good at hiding her dealings. Moses once led her co-workers to death one day during the Smoke War. The Smoke War being caused by the previous L-Corps, well, the one that generated power from a smoke-generating abomination, which ended up being replaced by the iteration of L-Corp founded by Ian, Benjamin, and Carmen. But as far as Moses was concerned back then, there was no room for interpretation or mercy. All she did was obey Diaz's orders, to obey her dream. The blood she spilled both outside the Ujat and within, she was bearing the burdens of others. This is what the pipe was forged from. Back in the present, she drew in the smoke, inhaling their memories in agony. Violet memories were necessary, akin to dark thorns, feelings of guilt, which manifested as neurosis. She disliked noises and talkative people, as they reminded her of voices that resented her. A reminder of the Smoke War. It's enough to make her mind bleed. All those small grievances, all those scornful remarks, words full of ire, barbed words that she carelessly spouted. She's pushed someone hard enough to make them burst into tears. She's become kinder and more understanding than she used to be. In the past, she didn't look after her subordinates. She only thought about Diaz. The process seemed trivial to Moses. Morality was blurry in the city. Well, Moses understood the city for what it really was, morally grey. All she wanted to do was distract herself from thinking about that, by focusing on what Diaz wished for. Although, she also focused on what she didn't wish for, and to take care of that. All to distance herself from the morality of the situation. What changed? It was because she heard the cries and screams of her subordinates. She left them for dead and moved on. Blood was spilled, and the pain was felt strongly. What changed her mind to give her a sense of altruism for her dead colleagues? This motivated her to give salvation to them, to those that drift through her head when she needed to access violet memories. With each distortion case resolved, their screams were silenced for a time. She asked herself why she abandoned them, giving a heartless order, not caring about them, and then trying to save them. She even questioned why she pushed them into such a hellish place. Her solving distortions was basically a narcotic that stopped the voices from being heard in her head. She couldn't stop until she's either dead or she finds a way of alleviating the guilt in a more permanent way. It's not voluntary. It's not charity. It's also not about the money either. She compares it to something like heroin, to dampen her guilt. She doesn't feel that she deserves payment for her services as a detective. She has declined requests and clients, likely those not related to the distortion. And although it's cumbersome and hurtful, that chain that stifles her heart, she needed to get a grip on her own mind. This chain is her contrition, due to the 2,142 people she brought death to. She saw the neurosis of the human Thunderbolts as pathetically small compared to hers. She embraced the humiliation, self-loathing, vexation, and anger within her. All of it. She exhaled the violet breath. This formed a hair-thin needle and thread construct, like it's reeled from her heart, a chain and a shackle. She told Ezra and Vesper that they had 30 seconds, as those two were straining themselves to hold back the horde of burned, reanimated corpses. Even parts of them were reanimated and crawling towards her. She stabbed one of them with the needle, her neurosis spreading through the corpses, which spread to the others. The more the thread spread, the more she suffered. The feeling of barbed wire felt like it was squeezing and crushing her brain. She had to withstand the physical and mental pain, even though it was a risk to her life. Vesper shot his harpoon at the human Thunderbolt's chest, when it was between corpses, which killed it, or at least incapacitated it. This caused the corpses to go back to being inanimate. Vesper told her that it was done, and Ezra asked the detective if she was okay, even though she was suffering from injuries herself. They weren't done yet. The chains of her mind needed to be retracted. Her memories and agony was felt as she pulled the chains back into herself. This worried Ezra, and once she fully retracted the chain, this caused her to go unconscious. So this reveals something about the pipe. Each of the breaths require experiencing different emotions and memories associated with those emotions. There's the red breath, which deals physical damage. There's the white breath, which focuses on the mental, in some cases used to protect against it. The violet breath attacks both body and mind, and the pale breath attacks the soul. Although, in that case, it also leeches away at her life force. With the violet breath, she requires feelings of guilt and regrets, like those of the smoke war. Sometime later, Vesper asked if she'd come to her senses. Yes, Moses had regained consciousness and realized that she wasn't dead. Moses asked if the distortion was retrieved. Ezra confirmed this. It's in the van. Moses thanked them, and then Vesper informed her of a problem. He told her that the electricity of the human Thunderbolt had caused the van to stop working. Like with an EMP. You would have thought that DS or hee-joon would have thought about that when they gave them the van, to make it so that it's not susceptible to something like an EMP or something with a similar effect. Well, too late now. This worried Ezra, and they were in trouble, suggesting that they contact hee-joon to call the Ujat over to repair the vehicle. Moses was hazy from using the violet thread and needle. She wasn't even sure where she was and what time it was. Ezra warned her that it was nighttime. At 3:26 a.m. in the back streets. Oh, let's remind ourselves of the night in the back streets. Where those outside of it, as in those outside of a building, whether they be fixer, syndicate, or others, they do so at their own risk. As those that are killed during this, no trace of them will be left, regardless of who kills them. And who clears up the mess? Well, that's of course the head's instrument of terror and population control within the backstreets, made from children captured by what appears during this time. The Sweepers. Moses, Ezra, and Vesper, along with Uriah, weren't in the best of positions, with only Uriah being blissfully ignorant of it, due to the effect of the mist. Well, until next time, hail the rabbit!